Coming up today on David versus Goliath.
The surname is Ridler, as in Batman, I say, so it's kind of stuck.
Don't let that idea that's in you die.
Welcome to today's episode of David versus Goliath, a podcast dedicated to helping small businesses leverage technology to not only help them compete against their large competitors, but win. Your host is currently the CEO of Anthem Business Software, a three-time Inc. 500 recipient, and a serial entrepreneur with a passion to help small businesses everywhere find, serve, and keep more customers profitably. Please join me in welcoming your host, Adam DeGraide.
Hey everyone, it's an amazing day here on the David versus Goliath podcast. I'm your host, Adam DeGraide, and I'm going to be interviewing Suke Ridler today. What a fantastic woman. What a great interview. She's the founder and the leader of mylifejars.com. You're going to find this really, really inspirational, educational. There's no doubt in my mind, and you're going to love this episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Anthem Software, where you can find, serve, and keep more customers profitably in their all-in-one solution of software, marketing, and consulting built specifically for small business. Check them out at anthemsoftware.com for a 120-second video tour. Every business has a song. Let their software and marketing system sing yours. Now also, make sure you visit us online at davidvsgoliathpodcast.com. There you can apply to be on the podcast. We'd love to hear your story. And you can also subscribe to receive our email newsletters. You can do a little shopping when you're there, grab a mug, grab a hat. You can also ask a question. If you have a question about your business, you want some free advice, don't be afraid. Ask me a question. I'd love to help you out. Well, with no further ado, we're going to get into it right now with Suke Ridler. Suke, welcome to the David versus Goliath podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. I've been excited about this. You don't know this because we haven't met before. It's the first time we're actually ever communicating, which is fun. I've read some information about your business and about you, and you have an awesome story, and I can't wait to dive into that. But many years ago, in my very first business, I started in Rhode Island in 1997. It was a business that I worked with a bunch of car dealers. And my uncle, who has just recently passed away, God rest his soul, had recently passed away, back then had an idea almost identical to what you have done. And he came to me because he thought I was some technological genius. And he's like, Adam, his name was Robert LaChance. He goes, Adam, I need your help in making this web portal, this website called Scythedral. And I said, well, what is Scythedral, Uncle Rob? He goes, it's going to be a place where people can leave documents and videos. And he started going through all this stuff. In my head at the time, back in, 97, 98, 99, they call it right around that time, everything was so new, it was like spinning in circles. He never did it. And then when I ran across your business a couple of weeks ago, I said, I've got to have Suke on because this is almost kind of the same concept that he had, which was to leave something behind. So for the watchers and listeners who are just tuning in, they have no idea what My Life Jars is. And I think the concept is fascinating. Why don't you tell them a little bit about who you are? And you have a very interesting story as to how you came to realize that this was a need that we all have. And then tell us a little bit about your business and we'll have some fun from there.
Sure. So I guess my entrepreneurial life started owning a vineyard and putting in some vines and starting from scratch, building up a business. And I was doing that for a few years and living up on a farm. And I was feeling pretty healthy and plenty of time left ahead of me. And then one day I actually started getting really sick, and it wasn't long before I was being airlifted from the country to the city in septic shock. I had one of those superbugs and my colon was about to explode.
Oh boy.
And there I was in the back of the plane and with my life kind of hanging on by a thread. And believe it or not, I wasn't thinking about dying. All I could think about was what a mess I was going to leave behind for everybody. Look, sure, I had a will in place, but, I couldn't even remember where I'd put it. More importantly, I was going to leave my former husband with such a mess sorting out the business because I run everything. He wouldn't know where any of the access credentials were. He wouldn't know how to get onto all the accounts. So I was really worried about that. And the other thing is I hadn't shared the details of my life story, my purpose, my feeling, my what ifs with my family in any detail. And I thought, well, my story's just going to crumble and vanish forever from here. And all those mementos I collected over the year that were really important and the family heirlooms, I hadn't kind of categorized them or shared them with my family. I thought they'd just kind of be tossed away with all that history gone. So lying in the emergency room, I really thought I'd let everyone down. Luckily, with the help of powerful antibiotics, I pulled through. But if I hadn't, it would have been a different story. So I kind of made a vow to myself that I needed to be prepared. But it felt very overwhelming, at that point. But there'd been another couple of things that, in my late 20s, my dad had, died of mesothelioma, and the doctors had asked me, what they should do if his heart stopped beating. And it left an onerous feeling of responsibility. We knew he was dying, but none of us were prepared to discuss that with him. And particularly my mum. My mum just really didn't want to know. And that was really hard. And then when my mum died, we couldn't find her will and we didn't know who the executors were. And it was in the middle of the Christmas holidays period. So there became a lot of friction in our family that was kind of fueled by grief. So I knew of some of the problems if things hadn't been said and done, yet I still hadn't been prepared for my brush with death. So I guess I started looking around for something. I mean, it had to be really safe and secure for me to leave, vital documents. I didn't want them being shared across the internet. I mean, that was really important stuff, but I still wanted people to have access, because I have relatives in the UK, but my daughter also lives in the US in Austin. So it was really important that everyone has access to the information they needed, but it had to be securely. And I wanted everything, the practical side and the business side, and the personal side all in one space. So that's how my life jars came about.
It's unbelievable when you think about how I believe like God uses circumstances in our lives almost like as a wake up call, right? It's like, we go through things that are difficult. We go through things that are challenges, and you're faced with a choice in those critical moments, right? Like, do you get depressed and discouraged and don't do anything and give up? Or do you realize, take those moments and say, no, I'm going to fight through it. I'm grateful to be alive. I don't want to leave a mess for people. And so My Life Jars was created. I love the name, by the way. The name My Life Jars is a really creative way to say, I have a bunch of very secure files with different things in it that you can find and have access. And I love it because it brings that human element into it. It's almost like, if I was to pass on, my family could go in and say, here's Dad's jar to personal messages to each family member. Here's Dad's jar on, for Mom that she needs to have all these things. And it's really a clever way to deal with things that a lot of us don't want to deal with. Now, you mentioned security, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned security, which I thought was fascinating. And, so when you decided to build the application, I'm assuming you're not a software programmer yourself. Maybe you are. I don't know. But if you're not, you had to get people to help you. The listeners of David and the watchers of David versus Goliath love to hear stories about how you're in that deathbed, you're out of it, you say, I've got to do something. And then you do something, which is the difference between people who succeed and fail. You decide to do something. What did you do next? How did you start the process of making and creating My Life Jars?
Believe it or not, I literally took a sheet of paper from the photocopier and drew 5 boxes with the original kind of 5 jars, the concept. And I really started from that. And I started talking to people in the cellar door because we had lots of people come in. And there was this one guy that kept coming in, and he had I didn't know it at the time, but he had a background in telecommunications, and then he'd worked in the movie industry on some of the first streaming things for Hollywood movies. So he'd done encryption work on that, and he was really interested, but I didn't know that at the time. So and I kept testing. I actually taught myself CSS code, and I developed, I did a wireframe, and then I taught myself some coding, and I actually developed a prototype on my phone, and I would show people. I'd say, what do you think of this? And so I'd get constant feedback. And then, of course, it came the big decision. My kids left and my marriage broke up. Or I decided I was already working on this. And then I thought, I really do have to do this. And my former husband, unfortunately, really wasn't behind it. And it became and the winery was very much his passion and his dream. And I really needed to start living my dream and my passion. And so everything kind of came into this perfect storm. I won an MVP grant, and that was it. It was go. And, my background is as an engineer. So I'm quite kind of methodical about things, even though sometimes I can be quite scatty. But yeah, it was serendipity. I met the right people, and, they were interested because some life events had affected them. And so everyone has a story about how a death has affected them or a mess has affected them. So very behind it. And yeah, awesome team. And then I was able to pick up a marketing consultant that lives in the US as well, which has been amazing.
I got to tell you, it's a great story. So you got this idea. You're running this. I always say it's God's way of remaining anonymous. It's coincidence. And you have all these people that you're running into that can help you. You win that grant. Yeah, somebody finally good wins the grant. I love that. And you get the grant and you make it a reality. And one of the things we talk about on David versus Goliath, Suke, is the fact that action is the life of an entrepreneur. It's the very thing that gives life to anything, is to act in. You have an idea. If it just sits in your mind or sits on a shelf or sits on that wireframe that you created, nothing happens. And that would be hesitancy. And then the idea dies. Well, you didn't do that. Life circumstances brought you to a place where you could focus on it. And you did. And congratulations to you. It's amazing. Now, we got to take a quick break from our corporate sponsor, Anthem Software. And when we come back, I do want to talk about your team a little bit. I'm Adam DeGraide. This is Suke Ridley from My Life Jars. I hope I'm saying that right. We're going to talk about that after the break as well, too. You're watching the David versus Goliath podcast. Here's a special message from Anthem Software, our corporate sponsor. We'll be right back.
Anthem Business Software System is designed to specifically help small businesses just like yours find, serve, and keep more customers profitably. We do this by providing you with the most powerful software, automations, and marketing services to help your business compete and win in this ever-changing digital world. Take a short video tour at anthemsoftware.com.
Anthem Software, every business has a song. Let our software sing yours.
And we're back with Adam DeGraide and Suke Ridley from My Life Jars. And before the interview, I had no idea how to pronounce your name. And here in the States, you said your name would be short for Susie. My mom's name is Susan. Short here in the States would be Sue or Susie. But I guess where you're from, Suke is short for Susan. And that was a fascinating thing. And you also started talking about these poems and things like that. So share a little bit with the listeners and the watchers about your name and how it's abbreviated and where it comes from.
Okay, so my name is Susan Ridler, and I was at university and I was always drinking a lot of tea, and there was a poem, an old nursery rhyme called Suke put the kettle on. So I became called Suke or Suke. And then I left university and I started to just be called Sue again. And then kind of in my late 50s, I thought, you know what? I really enjoyed being called Suke. I'm going to go back to be called Suke. So I started doing I pushed myself outside the box and did some stand-up comedy. And I thought, well, if I call myself Suke, I can say it rhymes with puke. And it's, everyone will remember that. And the surname is Ridler, as in Batman, I say. So it kind of stuck.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. Suke rhymes with puke. And you know what's funny? You say that you did stand-up comedy. I turned 50. I turned 50, Suke. And it's almost like my midlife crisis has become me being the most productive human being I possibly can be. I have an album coming out of piano and string quartet, all instrumental.
I saw that. That's gorgeous.
Thank you very much. All instrumental. I have a hard rock album coming out that's being done under a pseudonym that nobody's really going to know it's me doing it, but it's a really cool project. I can't really get into too many details about it. And I wrote a book, and I did a podcast, all these things that all these years I've wanted to do. And you want to know one of the other things that I've always wanted to do? I fancy myself a comedian a little bit as well too. And I've always wanted to hit that stage and tell a few jokes, because my name is Adam DeGraide. And I always tell people they haven't lived until they've been degraded. So, we'll see how that all plays out as time goes on. But good for you. Good for you. Now back to business. I'm enjoying this interview tremendously, by the way. Back to business. Your team.
Oh, thank you, Adam.
So you have a team that is helping you with this. Tell the listeners a little bit about how your team is comprised and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. So, the guy that I talked about coming into the winery and had the background also had a business partner that worked in encryption, and he was very interested what we were doing. And then we found a little software house. It took a couple of goes, but we found a little software house in Hornsby, which is a suburb of Sydney, run by 4 guys, and the architect, this kind of the developer architect, is just this amazing person, can do both back end and front end, and has really got behind the project. And the 3 of them particularly have been able to, obviously the team's a little bit bigger, but the 3 core of them have been able to drive this through. And I guess I've really had a very clear vision about what this needs to do function-wise and how this needs to look. And also one of the other members of the team was a very kind of visual and put the visual feel and the branding together. So, but the really exciting thing is the tech underneath. What we've been able to develop is this decentralized encryption engine. And I applied for a patent for it, and we've just had the results back from the international search, and it's got a very strong report for both novel, inventive, and ease of manufacturing, which are the 3 aspects that you need for a patent. So incredibly excited about that. Sometimes I lay in bed at night and I think, oh my God, I can't believe that I was laying on a sofa with a piece of paper, and it's now come to this. So kind of they're the core team. And then we've also got a real chatbot on the app to make it really easy for people to use. So that's a team based in the Philippines that we're educating on all the things that people need to know, because it's a big ask and it's very, people can get quite overwhelmed. We've tried to really make it simple with the concept of jars and not and very structured so people don't get overwhelmed. But then another serendipity thing, I went on a business course and I used a CRM that was recommended by the business course, and I was having trouble, supporting it, and reached out to someone. Another serendipity thing, became an amazing marketing consultant based in Florida, and that team has helped me launch in the States. Actually, they were responsible for saying, your original branding, because it was I started off calling it bio jars, as in biography jars. But it kind of, the feedback was, it reminds us of a pee bottle. So, we need to really change that. So we changed it to My Life Jars after a lot of debate and surveying, even though I'd done that before. And, so we rebranded. And in part of that, she said, let's launch in the US. And I said, it's only at MVP stage. And that actually then sent us through a process of upgrading to North American servers and really rewriting all the code and the tech behind it. So it's now elastic, so it can expand. And we have plans then to launch into the UK, as well as then going globally. So yeah, that's the team.
I absolutely love this. And that advice that they gave you in Florida was good advice. My pee jars is not quite the same as My Life Jars. There's no doubt about it. Don't hurt yourself. Don't hurt yourself.
Yeah, it's funny.
It is funny. And I got to tell you, though, it's awesome to hear these stories. And it's almost like sometimes you got to pinch yourself, right? When you've been successful as an entrepreneur, because I give you all the credit in the world, though, because you had an idea, you jotted it down, you didn't let it die, And I want to encourage my watchers and my listeners right now. Don't let that idea that's in you die. Bring it to life. Share it with people. Make sure you're getting it copywritten and getting your idea at least protected a little bit. But I've also gone for patents. You mentioned that. They're not easy to get. I'm actually getting a couple myself right now. I'm excited about them in the process of doing it. But they are very difficult to get. And the fact that you've been cleared in those 3 categories internationally, I'm rooting for you, man. Suke, I am rooting for you big time. And I want you to absolutely just crush it and kill it. This has been awesome. So, your team has been established. Now, you're obviously, are you still using the grant that was funded to you to fund this? Or are you funding it yourself now? Is there other?
No. That was tiny in compared with that. So I'm actually, can I just go back to Adam about what you just said? Because it's really important for your listeners. I think, sometimes people want to see a path ahead of them. They have to be really clear and see this whole path opening up. And I would say sometimes you just have to be prepared to see 1 or 2 steps ahead, because you don't know what path you're going to go down. And so many people get bamboozled. They don't want to take those first steps. They want to stay in their comfort zone. And really, we don't know what lies ahead, or we can jump off a cliff. We don't know where the bottom is. We just have to flap our wings really hard. And sometimes we may not get to the bottom. There might be a ledge somewhere down that takes us off on a different route. But it's being prepared to take that step on a path or to take that jump off a cliff. And I think that's really important for your listeners if they've got an idea to be prepared. But the journey is hard.
No, there's no doubt about it. They have to be prepared. And I love that, by the way. You use the word bamboozled, which I love the word bamboozled, by the way. It's not a word used a lot in America, although one of the songs from my secret project has the word bamboozled in it. And my brother said to me, he goes, I just love the fact that you're singing the word bamboozled because nobody's ever used the word bamboozled in a song. And I'm pretty excited about it. Now, Suke, we gotta take another break from another amazing.
Sorry, getting back to your question.
No, that's okay. I gotta take a break because of time, and then when we come back, I want to finish the thoughts that you have on this, and then I want to switch gears because I think what you were saying to the watchers and the listeners is critically important, and I want to talk about a word called courage. So you're with Adam and Suke on the David versus Goliath podcast. Where else are you going to have fun like this, learn things you've never learned before, and get encouragement like you're getting right here on the David versus Goliath podcast? We'll be back right after this. Another important message from the sponsor on DVG. Stay tuned.
At King 16, our agency has done some exciting things over the years. We've designed and built amazing experiences for customers and launched several vehicles for Audi and Porsche. We've thrown extravagant parties inside whiskey distilleries and featured amazing products for brands like Ray-Ban and Fossil. We booked some incredible talent and designed cutting-edge stages for those performances. We even threw a red carpet gala in the middle of nowhere on a horse farm with hundreds of celebrities, which was difficult. I guess you could say we've done some amazing things for our brands and partners. Now the only question is, what will King 16 do for you? Find out at king16.com. That's King, SIXTEEN.com.
And we're back with Suke and Adam, your host, handsome host, I might add. And at the end of the day, we're having a really, really good time with Suke. So Suke, before I get into my final couple of questions, is there anything else that you wanted to share on the threads that we've talked about beforehand, before we move on, or do you want to move on?
Oh, you were just saying about the money before I kind of went back onto the path. I basically funded it myself. So I turned 60 this year. And I kind of thought, it's important to do this. So I basically backed myself, and we're now through to, I've spent quite a lot of money on this, developing this. So we've now got the tech behind this. So we're part of moving to the UK, actually, which is why I'm in this Airbnb with the funny Japanese theme behind me, is that I'm moving to the UK so that we can start going for Series A investment, either in the US or in the UK, Europe. So it's going to be easier to travel from the UK. And aside from that, I'm going to be living on a canal boat.
I know, so, I saw that, a canal boat.
You've got to mix life and business. And yeah.
I love it. And you know what, folks? The fact that you're 60 and you're like, I'm not done yet. We're taking on the world. I love it. And that feeds right into my next question. And one of the things that I love talking about here on David versus Goliath, it's where the small guy takes on the giant and wins. And I talk about 5 smooth stones. You need the right plan. You need the right people. You need the right technology. You need the right process. Your people use these things. But the most important stone that you need in a business is courage. And David, the shepherd boy, took 5 smooth stones out of the river, but it only took 1 stone to slay that giant. And it was the fact that I believe it was called courage, the fact that he did it. And so when you think about the fact that you won that grant, kind of gave you a kickstart in the butt, right? Get yourself going. Here's a little bit of money. You got to start to do the idea. To, as you started to build it, things are never the way they seem to be. And there's so many moving things, like you mentioned, having to start with a few other companies, and you start with one that's not really right. You have to change. That costs money, costs time, costs energy, costs sleepless nights. And to have the courage to not only create the idea, get out of bed and do it, but to fund it. up to this point yourself with your own money speaks volumes. What is the intangible for you, Suke, that gave you that courage to say, I'm going to do this?
I think when you have actually faced death and you've been at the brink and all those things that have happened in my life, there's another instance where, I trusted a lawyer and who said, well, have a family trust, write a will, do an enduring power of attorney for a relative who lost their spouse, and I ended up having to manage their financial affairs. That ended up when she repartnered in the Supreme Court with accusations of wrongdoing, financial wrongdoing, and that was because there was no traceable records of the estate and her affairs. So that was really difficult, and that actually took a lot of money. It was very stressful, and it took 3 years out of my life and a lot of time that I could have been spent with my kids. So all these kind of things that have happened to me related to, the what ifs in life, when something happens, if doing what I'm doing can stop just one person having suffered any of those things that I've gone through, that gives me the ultimate motivation to keep going. And if I can do more than one, like many millions, and really help people not to face what I've faced, then that's everything to me. That is really everything. That's what I feel is my purpose in life now. And it's not just, people think about this, doing stuff, being prepared, looking at our business risk, maybe in our kind of like twilight years or when our business is established. But I'm saying, what ifs can happen at any time, and you really need to do it as young adults or even as entrepreneurs. You should always be thinking about your business risk, and nobody wants to have the courage to start thinking about the what ifs, but we do, and we need to be prepared, and we need to, put some time aside to take action.
I got to tell you, this has been probably one of my favorite interviews. I just interviewed my wife a couple of weeks back, and that was a pretty good interview. It's actually, at the time we're recording this, it's coming out in like 2 days. So you got to check out the episode coming out this week. I actually called the episode, "Did you Donald Trump these people?" It's actually pretty funny, and if she tells her stories, and but this has been a fantastic time for me to spend with you. It's been a joy. And before we leave, is there?
Thank you for having me.
It's been great. Is there any parting advice or wisdom that you would give, or a word of encouragement to that man or woman who is stuck? What was the one thing you tell them to get going?
I think you have to look at your purpose and let your purpose drive you forward. And there are so many reasons why you can't do things. There are so many things that clamber for your time, but it's always getting back to what your purpose is and why you should, do something. And I think if you always tap into that, you can achieve everything. And always think of things as doing it in bite-sized bits, baby steps, one thing at a time, so you don't get overwhelmed. And it's very much what my life Jar's philosophy is about, is don't be overwhelmed by preparing for the what ifs in life. Just do one thing at a time and you'll get there.
It's amazing advice. My mom, Suke, when I was 16 years old, told me to clean up my room. And I went into my room and it was a train wreck. Clothes everywhere, food, everything. And I was so overwhelmed I couldn't start. And my mother, with her wisdom, she came in and she put her arm around me and she said, "Adam," she said, "here's what we're going to do, and I'm going to help you start. We're not going to look at this whole room. We're going to take one section of this room and clean it." And we started in one corner We moved to the next corner. We cleaned the whole room on the outside, and then we went into under the bed at the end, which is where it gets really interesting. And we cleaned that out. And within
Don't go there.
and with an 8-hour window, that room was clean. And it's so true. My life jars, based on what you're saying, is built to take that mess. You might look at what you haven't done yet in your life as far as the what ifs and be overwhelmed. We're going to take Susan's advice and Suke Susan's advice to take one piece at a time and get our stuff cleaned up. Suke, have you had a good time being on DVG today?
Oh, it's been really fun. And I must say, your mum is very wise.
Trust me. The women in my life, I give so much credit because people are like, Adam, how do you do all these things? I'm convinced that 90% of it came from the advice I've gotten from my mom, my wife, the women that I've come in contact with in my life, and a lot of great guys too. I'm not trying to diss on the guys, but there's a special place in my heart for my mom, Susan, and my wife, Crystal, and all the people that have influenced me. Like my favorite teacher when I was a kid was Mrs. LaBeauty in second grade. I wanted to marry her, but obviously I was a little too young. So I didn't get a chance to do that. But hey, what are you going to do, Suke? So Suke, how can people find you, find out more information?
Yeah, look, it's pretty easy. Just type in mylifejars.com. The website has a lot of valuable information. Hopefully not too confronting, because some people don't have the courage to really tackle this. So there's a lot of information there. You can create a free account to go and have a look inside and look at the app, and then you can purchase a gold account. So if you're starting storing stuff, including video, and as I say, everything is really protected by this 2 levels. So we've got, the encryption of a financial institution, and then our encryption engine sits over top. So it's really safe and secure. So, and we do a number of challenges so that to help people cope with the overwhelm. And there you can find those on the website as well.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm signing up
Sign up for a challenge.
I definitely want to be a part of this. I love the idea. My uncle, Robert LaChance, would be so happy that someone took an idea that he had in the back of his mind. And I'm so grateful if it was you, because Scythedral, I'm not too sure if that would have been the best name in the world, but My Life Jars is a fantastic name. Suke, thank you so much for joining us on the David versus Goliath podcast. You've been watching another amazing episode in the can. I'm your host, Adam DeGraide. Stay tuned next week. You never know what you're going to learn. Remember, education, inspiration, activation, right here on the David versus Goliath podcast. Everyone have a fantastic day.